Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening to everyone. It is a great pleasure to warmly welcome you to this fourth online engagement session of the Transboundary Freshwater Security Governance Training. My name is Yumiko Yasuda. I'm the Senior Transboundary Water Cooperation Specialist at the Global Water Partnership and the lead faculty of the massive open online course on governance for transboundary freshwater security, which was developed by the GWP and the GEF IWLM, along with many global partners and experts from the field of transboundary water. Since opening of this course in August 2020, the MOOC has attracted over 2,000 participants from 147 countries around the world, confirming the need and the interest for learning about this subject. The course is available for anyone to take at their own pace. In order to enhance the learning experience and to provide opportunity for people to engage and interact with experts in the field, GWP and the Wuhan International Water Law Academy worked together to create an online event series called Transboundary Freshwater Security Governance Training. In this series of events, we'll be highlighting not only the key topics of transboundary freshwater governance, but also highlighting the examples and expertise from different geographic locations around the globe, as if the train is stopping at various locations in the world. Together with Wuhan International Water Law Academy, we are planning 6 online sessions specifically focused on topic of international water law. Today is the 4th session of this series, and the topic is on the climate change and international water law. Today's session has 2 main parts. The first part is a panel discussion by distinguished speakers, where they will be sharing their experiences on the topic and answering your questions. The second part is a breakout session where you will have all the opportunities to interact with experts. We have a great lineup of session chairs and speakers for the next 1 hour and 40 minutes. And today our transboundary freshwater governance train will be stopping at Africa, Europe, and North America, welcoming speakers from all of these regions. Now, I would like to give you some housekeeping rules for today's session. This online session will be recorded, so people who couldn't join due to the other commitments or the time zone differences will be also able to view the discussions. Please always make sure that you mute the microphone unless you're asked to speak. Please feel free to open your microphone during the breakout groups when you have questions to the speakers. This event will not only present the new knowledge, but will also welcome your input in the interactive part. And really, this is the most popular part of the session to be very interactive. So we very much count on your presence throughout the whole session. Today's event will have an English-French interpretation available. At the bottom of your screen, you see the screenshot here. There is a little mark, it says interpretation. And if you click this, it's like a globe logo on the right bottom side of your screen, you can choose English or French. So if you are a French speaker, you please choose French. If you are English, you can only understand English, please also choose English, because there will be a speaker who will be speaking in French, and then you'll be able to also listen to that in English and vice versa. Now, today's session is designed to be as interactive as possible for you to be able to ask the questions to experts and to also provide your thoughts and feedback to the subject. We'll be using the poll if as a main interactive tool, particularly during the first part of the session. Some of you have already used the poll while we are waiting for the event to start just now. So let's see the first poll if questions. So the first poll if question is, where are you joining from? So please go to polleve.com/GWP. I think my colleague will also type in the link to the chat. Yes, it's there now. So please go there and then tell us where you're coming from. We see a lot of dots coming from Europe and African continents and all over the place. And we also have people coming from Asia. And we also see some people coming from American continent, in Latin America, in South America, Brazil, North America. That is really, really early. I know that could be one of our speakers today, who is now joining us from Washington at 3 a.m. in the morning. Thank you so much for joining us. It's such an early morning hours, and some of you will be later in the day. It's great to see many dots appearing. Now I see one also from Australia. Thank you so much. Wow, it's really increasing just now to see all the dots coming from all over the world. So really, really great to see. And also some of you have also provided in the chat where you're coming from. So great to see so many of you. Now we are almost 100 participants already to this session. So thank you very much. Now I would like to go to the next question. So the next question for you is, what do you think? Should all the watercourse agreements contain provisions on how to protect watercourses from negative consequences of climate change? Yes or no? Simple answer choice question. Do you think this is important? So it should be actually included into the agreements of the watercourses, specifically to make sure that people should protect watercourses from negative consequences of climate change. Please give your answer, yes or no. I think there'll be a bit of a time lag for the answers coming on. So I think perhaps the people are already answering, and maybe we need to see, show the response. Yes, thank you so much. So majority of you have said yes, that it should be specific mention of this, climate change impact in the watercourses agreement. So some of you said no, perhaps it's not necessary. So these are the things that the questions you could actually consider while listening to the panel today. Now I would like to go to the next question. The next question is an open question. So please type or vote any questions you would like to ask the panel. So you have already submitted your questions before you joined when you registered to the Zoom, and thank you very much for that. We'll be taking those questions in our first round of the panel discussion, but we would like to hear more, and you might actually think more questions as you hear. So please type in any questions while you're listening to the panel. This poll will be open throughout the first part of the event while you're listening to the panels. And then if you see the question that you also like, you can vote for it. And then we will see which are the high scoring, more popular questions that people are more interested in. And then we will take those questions in the second round of panel discussion. So we already see a lot of questions coming in. To what extent can international water law apply for the conflict and so on? So we are keeping this poll open. Thank you very much for your questions. So please just keep typing in your questions as you think of it, or vote the questions. Now I would like to go to the real main part of today's session, which is this speakers and panel discussion. We have two distinguished event chairs, Professor Otto Spijkers and Dr. Barbara Janice Pauletta. Professor Otto Spijkers is a founding staff member of the International Water Law Academy and a professor at the China Institute of Boundary and Ocean Studies, and at the Research Institute of Environmental Law of Wuhan University. Otto studied at international, if you can go back again, Otto studied international water law at the University of Amsterdam and New York University and so on. Prior to joining the International Water Law Academy, Professor Spijkers has lectured in public international water law at Utrecht University and also a researcher there. And he was also a visiting lecturer at the various universities in the world, including in China, in the Xiamen University, Leiden University, and in Italy, University of Studi di Salmero, and so on. All kind of places. And so that's why he's saying that his biggest achievement in life is finding a home in lots of different countries. And his fun fact is that Otto has recently got a Chinese name. And here you can see on this panel his Chinese name. That means the height and the ocean. This is inspired by his height. He's very tall, and also that he was born near the ocean. This is really leading to the subject of his studies and the career also very much to his name. Okay, let's go to Barbara, introducing Dr. Barbara Janice Pauletta. She is a vice rector in international cooperation at the Kazakh German University. Barbara's teaching and research field covers legal framework of institutional interstate corporations, including water and energy nexus. She's looking at the worldwide and regional practices, especially in Central Asia, to facilitate interstate corporations in managing sustainable management of the water resources. In addition to her position at the German Kazakh University, Barbara is a member of the technical committee of the Global Water Partnership and at the International Law Association within the committee role of international law in sustainable natural resources management for development. She also serves as the UNESCO chairholder for the water management in Central Asia. The Barbara's fun fact is that she loves the piano music, but she can't play it anymore since she has so many children, and now she's teaching them the piano to her 4 sons. And her biggest achievement in her life is happy and a big family. Now I would like to hand over this session to the 2 distinguished chair, Professor Otto Spijkers and Dr. Barbara Janice Pauletta. Please, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Yumiko. If I may start, I would briefly introduce to our participants the topic of today. This is extreme pleasure to have all of the more than 100 participants talking today about the water management in terms of the climate change. This is a very important issue all of us see, and also Mr. Guterres and recently last year has mentioned that climate crisis is one of the 4 major threats to our so-called common future. And the same thing we can say also about the international water law, that it's at least one of the biggest challenges to international water law, which we all are interested in. There are many climate-related risks, as we know. First of all, changing freshwater ecosystem, loss of net runoff, disasters, droughts and floods, which at the same time have an impact on social economical situation in the countries. And basically all the fundamental assumptions about water allocation may change because the amount and quantity and quality of water is under change. So there is the only one option. We have to adapt to the situation, and there are again many options to adapt through scenario development, through adaptive management, supply enhancement, management of demand, water transfer, and of course, integrated water resource management, what is especially at the heart of the GWP activities. At the same time, we have to keep in mind that most of the transboundary basins, which are of interest to us, they lack regulatory framework, which certainly also makes even more problematic the adaptation to the climate change. But for sure, water is a part of the problem, as also Patricia Walters always says, but it's also a part of the solution. So we need the comprehensive cooperation, and we need further resilient water management. And in water law approach, it would be basin management, first of all, on the different levels, international, national, and subnational. Originally, we have to also stress that international water law was focused more on creating the secure rights for encouraging infrastructure in water management. But today, it seems that we much more need flexible real-time allocation. So we have to like join forces and put all the efforts on creating basin-wide benefits, and thinking how can we share them equitably, and thinking what is the best way of allocating water in the new patterns which we have now. Certainly, we will need for this more data sharing, and I think that we will be also extensively talking about this today. We will need more flexible institutions which will allow for more tailored adaptations in the allocation system. And if we think back what we have been studied and talked for already our train stops many times, we speak always about two main conventions, the 1997 Water Courses Convention, 1992 Water Convention, which all in their substantive, so-called substantive and procedural rules, they offer the sphere, the tools for adaptation approaches. So certainly, first of all, we think about the duty to cooperation, but also equitable, reasonable use, and not harming, and not significant harming the transboundary countries. And especially if we focus our attention on the principle of equitable and reasonable use, we will see in the conventions, especially in the Water Courses Convention, which says that climate is one of the main components to determine what is equitable at all. Right? To understand this is what is the criteria for equitability, climate is, has been defined by the convention as one of the most important criteria. But not only water law per se is something what we can use, but certainly also so-called multilateral environmental agreements, and first of all the climate-related one, like UN Framework Convention on climate change and its famous Paris Agreement. So we know that on one side they focus on the mitigation, but also they have especially Paris Agreement has the goal to enhance adaptive capacity. And certainly in water management, it will mean the basin-wide planning, it will mean evaluation and effective enforcement. And what is also maybe interesting to mention now in our discussion, that also protection of water courses becomes a part of climate litigation. And we just need to recall that in 2018, there was a Colombian Supreme Court who stated that Amazon should be regarded as a legal subject, having the right to protect it from the climate change mitigation impact. So I think that taking all of that, taking the existing rules of international water law, but also multilateral environmental agreements, we see that certainly it's disjoint and it needs more cooperation. Basically, we really need more cooperation, and the tools which exist and which are already foreseen in the many of the different agreements can be of use to help us to establish like adaptation regulatory mechanisms for water management under the impact of climate change. I think that it would be my kind of content-wise reflection on what we are going to speak today. And I'm so happy that we have experts from the legal sphere, but also from the practitioners. So I think that we will be able to reflect on those issues in much more details through the presentations. Otto, back to you.
Yes, thanks very much, Barbara. That was a very helpful introduction to the topic. So it's now my great pleasure and privilege to introduce the speakers to our audience. So I will introduce them to you in the order in which they will appear, and give their 5-minute reflections. Initially, we had a program of 4 speakers, but for reasons that we completely understand, one of them had to withdraw. But we now have a very rich program, still very full program. So let's quickly continue. So our first speaker will be Sonja Koppel. She's now the secretary of the Convention on the Protection and Use of Transboundary Watercourses and International Lakes. So we normally refer to that as the Helsinki Convention or the UNECE Water Convention, because it was adopted under the auspices of the United Nations Economic Commission for Europe. So Sonja will introduce you to that treaty and also tell you something about UNECE's experience in supporting transboundary water basins in addressing climate change, drawing on specific cases from the field. So she will also share with you some of her practical experience. So we very much look forward to that first address. And then the second speaker. Oh, yes, let me mention the fun fact. Sonja has played the cello, that's a musical instrument, in 6 different orchestras since her childhood. So you might be curious to know why she had to change orchestras all the time. This is something you may want to ask her in the Q&A session. So we now move to the second speaker, and that is, yes, there we have him, Nagaraja Rao Harshadip Rao. So he is a global lead for disruptive technology of the World Bank. So he has a distinguished career primarily at the World Bank. And he will talk to us about the role of big data in managing the consequences of climate change or on transboundary waters. So he will talk to us about disruptive technologies and various of these issues. So he's not really a lawyer, so for the lawyers in the audience, I think his presentation will be particularly refreshing and will contain a lot of information that you are probably not very familiar with or aware of. So I'm very much looking forward to Rao's presentation. And he has been traveling the world for decades and decades and decades. And of course, because of the pandemic, he was sort of forced to take it easy for the last couple of months. So he's now speaking to us from Washington at a very early hour. It's now 3 or 4 in the morning for him. So we greatly, greatly appreciate his presence and his contribution to this debate. And then we go to the third speaker, and that is DJ Seive Sunzu. Yes, there we have him. He's currently the director at the Niger Basin Observatory, where he has the immense task of monitoring the development of water and the environment of the Niger Basin, and producing technical notes on the state of this environment, and also providing advisory support on environmental issues in the Niger Basin. I'm just reading from the profile. Before he became the director of the Niger Basin Observatory, he also worked in different capacities for the Niger Basin Authority, the NBA, not to be confused with the basketball competition, of course. So he's a big expert on that particular basin, and his contribution to tonight's debate will, of course, focus on his practical experiences in managing climate change in that particular transboundary basin. And he will be the first in our series to speak to us in French. So we're all very excited about this. It's the first session today that will be offered in 2 languages, so in French and in English. Everything will be translated, as was announced at the beginning, but when we break out into 3 different breakout groups, please be advised that the breakout group of DJ and myself will be entirely in French. So if you are more comfortable speaking in French, I highly encourage you to join us, our breakout group. So that will be the breakout group of DJ and Otto. That is all from me. I now give the floor to the first in the series of speakers, and that will be Sonia Koppel. She will speak to us for about 5 minutes, and then we immediately turn to the next speaker. That will be Rao, and then after he has spoken to us for 6 minutes, it's not 5, it's 6 minutes, I apologize. We will go to the final speaker, Zinzu, after which we will break into the breakout groups. So Sonia, you have the floor.
Thank you very much. Good morning, good afternoon to everybody, and thank you for the invitation to this event. So I would like to start on the first slide with recalling why it is important to cooperate in adaptation to climate change at the basin level. It enables us to enlarge the knowledge base by sharing data across country, but also to locate measures where they have the optimum effect, which sometimes may be upstream or downstream in a basin, and to better identify the priorities and to avoid maladaptation. It thereby helps to reduce uncertainties, which are so high in the face of climate change, and can support sustainable development and regional integration, and even support adaptation planning at the national level. However, as we all know, it's not easy to do. And as Barbara already introduced at the beginning, the 2 global water conventions provide some directions also for adaptation to climate change. And I will focus now more, as you can see on the next slide, on the 1992 Water Convention, Convention on the Protection and Use of Transboundary Watercourses and International Lakes, which has been actually opened up to all United Nations member states and is now a global United Nations legal and intergovernmental framework on transboundary water cooperation, which offers capacity building, sharing of knowledge and experience. It currently has 44 parties, but many more are in the process of exceeding, and more than 130 countries worldwide participate in the activities under the convention. Now, the convention aims to facilitate and promote transboundary water cooperation, to prevent, control, and reduce transboundary impacts. And already very early, more than a decade ago, the parties recognized that climate change is an important challenge, and they created the Task Force on Water and Climate in 2006, which has since then supported countries in adapting to climate change at the basin level. Firstly, by developing guidance material and different publications, such as the Guidance on Water and Adaptation to Climate Change, or a bit later, the collection of good practices and lessons learned. And other guidance material is currently in the process of being developed, such as a handbook on water allocation in a transboundary context. Then it was also recognized that we need to support countries in doing so. And that includes the organization of regular global workshops, for example, on ecosystem-based adaptation, or just a few weeks ago on increasing resilience to climate change through better water management at national and transboundary level. We also work on promoting water and climate in global processes, and we have a number of pilot projects on the ground, about which I will tell a bit more. And finally, we have a global network of basins working on climate change adaptation, as you can see on the next slide, which is coordinated by the Water Convention and the International Network of Basin Organizations since 2013, and includes regular meetings to exchange experiences and knowledge, share best practices, challenges and lessons learned. And it supports the basins in developing, implementing and financing climate change adaptation in transboundary basins. Currently, 17 basins are part of the network. Many of the major ones, such as the Danube, the Rhine, the Meuse, the Senegal, Zexaola, the Mekong, and many others. And I would like to encourage other basins to join if interested. Now, on the next slide, you can see the big recommended steps in transponder climate change adaptation. But I think I will actually skip this, given that Barbara already spoke about it. I would only like to highlight the importance of integrating transponder adaptation measures also into the national adaptation strategies and plans, such as the NDCs and the NAPs. On the next slide, you can see now, I will briefly introduce 2 case studies. The Dniester Basin is shared between Ukraine and the Republic of Moldova. And here, UNEC, together with other international organizations, has been helping the countries to adapt to climate change by developing a transponder vulnerability assessment, a strategic framework for adaptation to climate change, and implementation plan, and also to implement concrete measures on the ground. And these activities have increased the adaptive capacity in the basin and actually facilitated the entry into force of the Dniester Treaty and of the establishment of the Dniester Basin Commission. Then another example, as you can see on the next slide, is the Lake Victoria Basin in Eastern Africa. And here the Lake Victoria Basin Commission has developed a climate change adaptation strategy and is currently implementing a project funded from the Adaptation Fund, which supports countries to increase resilience and adapt to climate change. As you can see on the next slide, it's also very important to consider financing climate change adaptation. And unfortunately, many of the climate funds are limited to national projects, but transboundary basin organizations can play a role, sometimes in cooperation with other accredited agencies, but they need to demonstrate their added value. And they need to look at which funding windows exist, such as the Adaptation Fund, which has a regional program for adaptation. Finally, I would like to conclude by just briefly mentioning some ingredients for success. We need to bring together the political and the expert level. We need good communication. We need flexible transboundary agreements. We need capacity building support. We need concrete activities on the ground combined with strategy development. We need strong basin organizations. We need data sharing and involvement of large, many actors such as civil society also, and obviously academia. And on my next slide, you can see the final conclusion, which is that, as we know, climate change makes adaptation, climate change makes transboundary cooperation more challenging, but it can also, cooperation on adaptation to climate change can also facilitate broader transboundary cooperation and even support national adaptation actions. And some of the meetings here mentioned on the slide will provide further information to all this. And on the final slide, you can see some other resources and material which help you to bring more information. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Sonia Kopal. I now give the floor to our second speaker. So that will be Nagaraja Rao Harshadip. By the way, all the slides will be posted on the website immediately after the meeting. So you don't need to take notes. We will share the slides with you. You have the floor.
Great. Thank you very much, Odo. And what I'll do today is to try and give you a really quick overview of different aspects of technology, and especially related to big data and how that could relate to climate change related work in international waters. So we know that the climate is changing because CO2 levels are changing, and we have, as a result of that, a lot of other changes that are happening, including on things like temperature increasing, but there's a lot of other implications also on other aspects of weather and other areas. And if you look at any particular country, so for example, if you look at Nepal, let's say, we have historical climate variability and changes that have happened, which will now be in a whole new zone, depending on what happens to temperature, which all models expect to increase, and on rainfall, which models seem to disagree about whether it will increase or decrease. And this is something which is really crucial, especially in the summer monsoon months that are there. But all of these, as Barbara was saying, require a basin approach as well. So if we look at the Ganges Basin, we see that a lot of things will change in the Himalayas in terms of snow, glaciers, all of these kind of aspects. We know that you have a lot of urban areas that are also growing and demanding more water. So the water footprint angle will change, not only for urban areas, but more important for the agricultural areas, because crop water requirements will also go up, at least just with the temperature increases that are projected. You also have, because of the temperature increases, a lot more evaporation from the system losses, including from reservoirs such as these. And you also have changes then in the hydrology, the sediment flows and other things that happen all the way in the system as well, like in the Kosi Basin here. And to look at also changes then in the vulnerability of people in terms of flood protection and aspects like that. Deltas, you'll have special issues in terms of sea level rise or sinking area, as well as sedimentation changes, which will all lead to whole new changes in the way people will be able to look at maybe how the coastal storms and other areas might then start affecting these areas. So now on the climate change side, we know a few things. We know temperature is going to increase, but models differ on what that is, even though there's the older set of models. You also look at rainfall. It's hard to find out both spatially and temporally any agreement across these models. So you have a very different picture of the future depending on which models you look at. So the big challenge is, how do you do decisions that are robust to a wide range of these scenarios, many of which may be equally likely? And these can start affecting also the historical climate variability that's already there in the region. For example, especially areas like Bihar, Northeast India, Bangladesh, which are very prone to floods, cyclones, we don't know how that's going to get affected. We don't know how the drought, we expect that floods and droughts will be exacerbated as we go into the future. And there may be a whole range of other uncertainties in terms of how could the monsoon system change, how could these storm systems change, or the interannual to decadal systems change as we go through. And in order to look at all of these, we have a new world now of disruptive tech, where you have disruptions in the form of different ways of changing, going from data to information to knowledge to decision support, looking at the entire data value chain, new ways to collect information from Earth observation and IoT sensors on the ground and apps and so on, and new ways to analyze these using machine learning and making them more accessible to cloud services, new ways to make things, new ways to connect people like we are doing right now. And the challenge is, when you look at reality, we either go to places in the world which, people say, oh, this is in the middle of nowhere, we have no data, of course. Or, of course, we have lots of data, lots of big data, but it looks like big bundles where the only digestion of this information looks like it's from termites. And the new challenge we have with big data, that is, you're drowning in it. And the whole idea is, how do you drink from this in a sensible way? So what we have is a whole history we've inherited of data secrecy, especially on the water resources side in transboundary basins, a whole set of these retail level activities where you do a one basin model here, one basin model there, and so on. Lots of these little fragmented versions of come to my website, look at my piece of data, and so on. And all of these are slowly becoming more analysis ready services, wholesale platforms, not fast enough, and also more in terms of being able to customize these for different applications. And a lot of these are driven by changes in the way you monitor things, using a lot of new kinds of what we call bottom-up monitoring systems, new ways of even involving communities in the monitoring, and a new range of these top-down systems when you're looking at new types of Earth observation products that could see anything from weather to even how groundwater use changes over time in some of the larger basins. And the challenge becomes to try and integrate all of this bottom-up, top-down data rescued from the termites, data with the different models, and use a lot of these buzzwords in disruptive tech in order to make that data available on different platforms, whether it be in an operation control room or in terms of dashboards and ebooks and other aspects on anyone's phone. And to integrate these, especially with new kinds of complex models that are becoming easier to do over time, so that you can move up the data value chain to try and see, for example, if your decision is to cope with floods, and not start with the data side, but the decision side, to see what you need in order to make these happen, and then see the entire ecosystem of data analytics and stakeholder consultation that are required to be improved in order to help make that one decision. Same thing on the planning side as well. So at the bank, we've done a few different ways of trying to capture what kind of big data exists and to be able to provide access to these. You'll get these presentations, as Otto said, so you can check out some of these types of systems that we've tried to put in place, and also with different languages, by the way. But also now we have a lot of tech at everyone's disposal. For example, at the bank, in our internal system, which will go external soon, if you want to look at any particular location, so let's say in upstream in the Nile Basin, in the headwaters of the Blue Nile, in Gilgil-Abai, one of the tributaries, you want to see what the watershed is at a particular location. So you can run free scripts for that. You can look at high resolution imagery that goes with that. You can do a lot of analytics now on the fly. For example, if you want to say, let me look at elevations for that basin based on analysis from Google Earth Engine. You could do a lot of these kinds of things by the interoperability of these systems that are there now and put them on these kind of open source platforms in order to visualize. And you can do this for the entire water cycle to look at water balances of rainfall, even soil moisture and things like that. And also to look at other data sets like population or vegetation indices or even for example, places like the Nile and in Lake Nasser, if you want to look at an Aswan Dam, thankfully the levels are high right now. Otherwise, it would be more of a tension with the new big dam that's coming up in the system. Or ways of looking at each catchment level activities, and even in more inaccessible places. So let's say you want to look at the Mosul Dam in Iraq, again, a transboundary basin on the Tigris. You can see for any location, how the water body areas can change over time for the last few decades. So a lot of these are now accessible to everybody online. And there's some exciting new developments as well. I'll show you one last one, which is to say, for example, at any given location, anywhere in the world, this is with the new system with the Group on Earth Observations, Global Water Sustainability, and the European Center for Medium Range Weather Forecasts are doing, to see what the flows might be in the next 2 weeks for all the 51 models of the ECMWF, or being able to look at the last 40 years for any river segment anywhere in the world to see what the return periods might look like.
I'm afraid you've run out of time.
Oh, okay. And just on the last slide then, the idea is to try and get a sense of what this might mean from the point of view of transboundary waters. And this is the last slide to say the idea is to look at how law may be something you may want to look at for different types of big data. Yeah. Collecting data, analyzing data, and using data. You'll have these slides, so please do look at this, and happy to discuss more in the Q&A.
Okay, thanks very much. So we now move to the last speaker, that's DJ Zinzou, and he will speak to us in French. Donc, à vous la parole, Monsieur Zinzou. C'est à vous.
Merci, Monsieur Otto. Je suis le Zinzou Didier. Je suis le directeur de l'Observatoire et je vais vous parler en tant que technicien de l'intégration du changement climatique dans les documents de planification de l'autorité du bassin du Niger. Le prochain slide. OK. Comme vous pouvez déjà le voir, et comme nous l'avons dit tantôt, il fallait intégrer toutes les planifications nationales dans le plan d'investissement climat du bassin du Niger. Et donc, pour répondre à la question qui nous avait été posée, et de savoir la gestion du changement climatique dans un bassin transfrontalier, il faut noter qu'à l'ABN, tous nos documents de planification et de mise en œuvre de développement du bassin du Niger, c'est-à-dire la vision elle-même, le plan d'action de développement durable, le plan d'investissement, le plan stratégique, le plan opérationnel et le plan d'investissement climat, tous ces documents de planification sont des priorités des 9 pays qui constituent l'autorité du bassin du Niger en termes d'adaptation prioritaire et de développement d'adaptation et à impact transfrontalier. Toutes les actions prioritaires sont à impact transfrontalier. Et il faut noter que ce document a été élaboré à la demande de nos ministres des Finances, qui, lors de la d'une table ronde ministérielle sur l'avenir du fleuve Niger, en avril 2015, ont décidé que l'autorité du bassin dispose d'un plan d'investissement pour le renforcement de la résilience au changement climatique. Donc, ce plan a été préparé, présenté à la COP, et ce PIC est actuellement en cours de mise en œuvre et contribue au renforcement de la résilience climatique des écosystèmes et des populations du bassin. Il faut noter que ce PIC, c'est un ensemble cohérent d'actions et d'investissements concrets qui prend en compte les priorités des principaux documents de planification existants, à savoir la PANA, les PNA et les contributions déterminées au niveau national, tant des pays que du niveau régional. Donc, qu'est-ce qu'on peut conclure là? On peut dire que le PIC, comme instrument de mobilisation du financement climatique, a suivi la préparation avec les pays, la BAD et les partenaires. Financement et mise en œuvre en cours du programme intégré de développement et d'adaptation au changement climatique dans le bassin du Niger, PIDAC, avec 308, environ 309 millions mobilisés de différentes sources de financement et du Fonds vert pour le climat. Le prochain slide. Voilà. Maintenant, pour y arriver, l'autorité du bassin du Niger a dû mener des dialogues entre tous les acteurs. Il faut dire qu'il y avait eu un cadre de dialogue permanent qui était établi et était fonctionnel avec les pays à travers les différents organes et instances que l'ABN avait mis en place. Il s'agit là du comité régional de pilotage qui permet de faire le bilan et la programmation annuelle des activités. Il y a les ateliers et les forats régionaux sur différentes thématiques sur l'eau et le changement climatique. Il y a aussi la coordination nationale et les membres des structures focales nationales qui ont contribué énormément parce que eux, ce sont les démembrements de l'ABN au niveau pays. Nous avons les coordinations nationales et régionales des usagers et des ressources naturelles du bassin qui sont des parties prenantes au dialogue. Donc, la participation de l'ABN aux activités de planification et de revue bilan des actions d'adaptation au changement climatique dans les pays. Le prochain slide. Le prochain. Voilà, en matière de mesures de coopération transfrontalière dans le domaine du droit international et de l'eau et du changement climatique, il faut noter que ces instruments de coopération nous ont permis d'harmoniser les procédures et aussi des équipements du système de suivi des ressources en eau, savoir les stations hydrométriques et les bases de données. Donc, on a pu harmoniser ces instruments, ces équipements sur le terrain. Il y a des échanges permanents d'informations sur l'eau et l'environnement qui se font à travers le dispositif mis en place. Nous avons aussi les outils de gestion de l'eau et des aléas que nous utilisons pour une gestion coordonnée des ressources en eau et pour faire les prévisions des crues et des triages. Aussi, en termes de coopération, il y a l'appui au pays à travers des actions transfrontalières ou à impact transfrontalier frontières, suivant les différents axes de planification stratégique. Et comme nous pouvons le noter dans notre plan stratégique, l'eau est un levier de développement économique qui permet la préservation des écosystèmes du bassin, le financement innovant et durable, la coopération avec les États et partenaires et la performance organisationnelle. Ce sont là les grands axes de notre plan stratégique. Et les différentes actions à mener dans le bassin doivent forcément s'inscrire dans ces différents axes que nous venons de citer. Autre type de mesures d'adaptation promues par l'ABN à travers ces projets et programmes, c'est donc le développement de la résilience des écosystèmes et des ressources naturelles, protection des ressources et des écosystèmes, le renforcement de la gestion partagée des ressources naturelles. Et le deux, c'est le développement de la résilience des populations, développement des infrastructures à but multiple, mesures d'accompagnement et de protection sociale. Et le prochain slide. Voilà, en termes de bénéfices potentiels de cette coopération transfrontalière, il y a forcément le renforcement du mandat de l'ABN en matière de coopération et de gestion des ressources transfrontalières du bassin, qui favorise ainsi une intégration régionale. Nous avons la mise en œuvre des actions qui permettent ainsi d'accroître la résilience et d'améliorer le niveau de vie des populations et mieux sécuriser les populations et les ressources naturelles du bassin. Aussi, il y a l'harmonisation des approches d'adaptation et l'édification d'une vision commune pour prévenir les aléas et promouvoir les meilleures pratiques d'adaptation et éviter la maladaptation. Et enfin, nous pouvons parler de la capitalisation des bonnes pratiques et mise en place d'un référentiel harmonisé pour orienter la conception.
Monsieur Zenzou, est-ce que vous pouvez conclure? Il vous reste encore 20 secondes. Excusez-moi.
J'ai terminé. Je suis sur le dernier point. C'est donc la capitalisation des bonnes pratiques et la mise en place de référentiels harmonisés pour orienter la conception, la mise en œuvre et le suivi des actions à impact transfrontalier, et à savoir l'adaptation au changement climatique, la gestion et la valorisation des connaissances. Voici ce que j'ai à partager avec le public. Merci.
OK, merci beaucoup, Monsieur Zenzou. So we now have some time for a Q&A with us and the speakers, but I suggest we keep it very brief because the participants are, of course, very much looking forward to speaking with our distinguished panelists. So I will just put one question to each of the speakers, and these questions are not made up by me or prepared by me. I actually took them from your questions, the participants. So the question to Sonia is, how does international water law include climate change issues in the overarching rule of equitable and reasonable utilization? And I actually saw that Patricia Wouters already addressed this question in part in the chat. So, but maybe you have something to add. And then I have a question for Harshadip. How can new technologies and concepts, such as artificial intelligence, applications, citizen science, and so on, help to tackle climate change in a transboundary context? So that's the question for you. Et la dernière question est adressée au monsieur Didier Zenzou. Et je vais le poser en français, bien évidemment. Face au changement climatique, quelle stratégie peut-on mettre en place pour préserver les ressources en eau dans la zone du Sahel plus en général? Thank you very much. So would it be possible to answer the question in a couple of minutes only, because we are running a bit behind schedule? I really would appreciate your kind understanding. Thank you. So we give the floor first to Sonia.
Thank you very much. And indeed, the question has been partly answered already by Barbara at the start and then by Patricia in the chat. So international water law indeed provides direction and some general rules for actions to take and actions to avoid in shared basin, also in the face of climate change. For example, the Water Courses Convention in Articles 5 and 6 mentions climatic factors among the criteria to be considered when determining equitable and reasonable use. Climate-related and disaster-related conditions are also mentioned in Article 27 on emergency management, where countries should jointly take all appropriate measures to prevent and mitigate conditions resulting from natural causes such as floods and ice conditions. As you can see on the next slide, the 1992 Water Convention also has several provisions relevant for climate change, such as the prevention of transboundary impacts. Countries should establish and implement joint programs for monitoring the conditions of transboundary waters, including floods. And also many other provisions are relevant for climate change. Then, as Patricia has written, most important are also the Basin agreements, which should be developed according to the global conventions for transboundary basins around the world, and in which it is also recommended to include these issues which we're discussing today. In the monitoring of the SDG indicator 6.5.2 on transboundary water cooperation, we have seen that basins are increasingly including these actions in, for example, developing climate change adaptation strategies and river basin management plans with climate aspects. However, much more is to be done because it's still a minority of basins, transboundary basins worldwide, who are currently have flexible enough agreements or are sufficiently addressing climate change at the basin level. Thank you.
Great, thanks very much. So I now give the floor to Nagaraja Harshadip.
Yeah, hi, please call me Harsh. The rest is my dad's name. On your question, I think it's really important to realize that we are in this whole new world in terms of technology. And this is where a lot of what we thought would be something that's really difficult to do can become much easier, especially both on the planning side of water resources in a transboundary context and the real-time operations in a transboundary context as well. So for example, there's new ways to get data, as we mentioned, from Earth observation, from in-situ sensors, but also, as you mentioned, from crowdsourcing, from citizen science and so on, which is becoming increasingly important in all spheres. And that's something which then can have a new way of getting new kinds of data in, but also new ways of analytics, especially cloud-based systems and analytics, artificial intelligence, machine learning, and so on, to fill in a lot of the gaps that we have in our knowledge. And the key thing is to make this part of a data value chain, to go from data to information to knowledge, to actually supporting decisions to help planning in a basin context integrate climate better, to look at early warning systems in terms of flood and drought things, drought insurance, climate insurance type issues based on these kind of big data, and also for water infrastructure coordination for the operations as well. There's other kinds of things beyond data in terms of drones to plant mangroves, let's say for blue carbon and other aspects that you're looking at, or ultrasonic algal control, connecting people in new ways to learn things in a new way. But all of these require this enabling environment of having open minds to learn from global good practice and improve awareness, and open data systems so that you can do better in terms of these systems going ahead.
Thanks very much, Harsh. I don't know, whenever I hear you speak, I always have the impression that you have so much more to say about something you're talking about. But yeah, I'm so sorry, we have to keep it to a minimum, to the essence, and you're doing a great job at sticking to the essence. Thanks so much. So we now give the floor to Didier Zinzou. So donc, à vous la parole. Yes.
Merci, M. Otto. Et en matière de stratégie à mettre en place pour préserver les ressources en eau dans la zone du Sahel, et plus singulièrement dans le bassin du Niger, je pense forcément qu'il doit pouvoir y avoir une volonté politique comme premier niveau. Avec la volonté politique, on doit pouvoir aller au dialogue entre tous les acteurs. On doit établir le dialogue avec tous les acteurs. Et forcément, dans les documents de planification, impliquer tous ces acteurs dans la planification des actions de développement en prenant en compte forcément la dimension changement climatique. Et c'est à partir de cet instant que nous pouvons avoir des documents bancables qui peuvent faire l'objet de financement. Et il faut, en matière de financement aussi, il faut dire qu'il y a des financements locaux qu'on doit pouvoir lever pour mettre en place, pour faire avancer ces projets de développement. Donc, de façon grosso modo, il faut noter que la gouvernance des ressources en eau, en y mettant les tests législatifs et réglementaires, s'impose en disposant des outils d'arbitrage des ressources en eau, d'informations sur la connaissance, notamment les prévisions et autres, s'impose aussi, et avoir des instruments de planification robustes, disposer des organes de gestion des ressources en eau d'un bassin. Voilà un peu ma contribution à la stratégie à mettre en œuvre pour préserver les ressources en eau de façon grosso modo.
Thanks very much. Merci, Monsieur Zinzou. So this ends the Q&A part. I now give the floor back to Yumiko to explain or to sort of guide us into the breakout sessions.
Thank you very much, Otto, and 3 speakers. Hello, do you hear me now? Hello? Yes. So thank you very much, Otto, and the 3 speakers for this excellent presentation and discussions. I know you have all the questions, so many questions you want to ask. And I know you have all typed into the poll your questions, and they will stay there. Now you have an opportunity to ask these questions directly to the speaker that you want to ask the questions to. So keep in mind the discussions, and also look at the poll questions also from the other peers, and then please choose the breakout session. Now we are going to open make 4 different breakout rooms. In the main room here, it will be Otto and Didier will stay here, and this main room will be the only place where you could have a French speaking, and also with the translator will stay in this room. So if you need the translation, please stay in this room. And then the other 3 rooms group will be all in English only. The group 1 will be Sonia and Coupel and Dave Devermek from the Wuhan International Water Academy. The group 2 will be Harsh and Barbara Janice Pauletta. And then group 3 will be Patricia Wouters, who is the director of the Wuhan International Water Academy, and myself. So group 3 will be not related to any speakers for this session per se, but if you have any general questions about the MOOC or about the Wuhan International Water Academy, or any more general questions related to transboundary water management and international water law, please come to the group 3. So if you look at the bottom of the screen, you see there is this 4 dots, say breakout rooms. You see it on the screenshot with the red. So please click there, and in a minute our technical host will be opening the breakout rooms. If you click here,
I'm opening the rooms now.
Okay, now you will see. If you click here, you will see a different rooms. Then you can actually choose the room that you want to go to. So you can you see the room 1, Sonia and Dave, 2, Harsh and Barbara, 3, Pat and Yumiko. You just click join, and then you will be automatically diverted there. So now I see already a lot of you already jumped in there. And if you have any problems to jump into this room, or problems to choose the room, please type in the chat which room you want to go. Just say, because we will see your name, so we know who wants to go to which group. If you have a problem choosing the group, please type in the chat. And then our technical, yes, thank you. I see now many people are typing the names, the groups. So please choose the group that you want to go to. And then our technical host will send you there to the right groups. Anyone else wants to go to other groups, haven't typed in the chat, please do so now. So now this is the main room. So whoever will stay here, this is going to be a French English speaking group. So now I will hand over to Otto and Didier to have a great discussion, and I'm going to jump into the breakout 3. So enjoy, enjoy your group discussion.
Salut à tout le monde qui est resté ici avec nous. C'est un grand plaisir de continuer la conversation avec vous tous et toutes. En fait, je donne la parole à vous et c'est à vous de demander des questions que vous avez pour Monsieur Zinzou, et peut-être les autres, ils peuvent aussi contribuer à trouver la réponse à votre question. Donc, à qui puis-je donner la parole? À qui entre les participants? S'il vous plaît, présentez-vous. Ah, ne soyez pas si modeste. Quelqu'un qui a le courage de poser la première question, s'il vous plaît. Non. Ok, d'accord. Donc, on a parlé, il y a quelques minutes, on a parlé de la gestion du changement climatique, notamment au bassin de Niger. Donc, si vous voulez en savoir plus, maintenant, c'est le moment de poser des questions. Ok, donc moi, je vais commencer, si ça ne vous gêne pas trop. Donc, Monsieur Zinzou, est-ce que vous pouvez parler un peu plus de la participation du public, de la société civile dans la gestion du changement climatique au votre bassin, c'est-à-dire le bassin du Niger? Donc, public participation. J'en suis très curieux.
OK, voilà. Et comme je l'annonçais tout à l'heure, à l'autorité du bassin du Niger, donc dans le bassin du fleuve Niger, il faut noter que nous avons organisé tous les États, tous les usagers des ressources en eau dans chaque pays au niveau d'une structure qu'on appelle la coordination nationale des usagers et des usagères des ressources en eau, des ressources naturelles du bassin du Niger. Donc, dans ce creuset, tous ceux qui sont usagers de ces ressources se retrouvent, discutent, font des propositions dans le cadre de la planification, et il faut noter que les 9 structures, les 9 coordinations nationales des usagers des ressources naturelles du bassin élisent en leur sein une coordination régionale. Donc, c'est cette coordination régionale qui est fortement impliquée dans la planification au niveau des réunions statutaires. C'est lui qui représente les 9 États. D'accord? Quand les activités se mènent au niveau des États, la participation des usagers de ce pays est forcément intégrée. Ils y participent en tant que coordination nationale des usagers et des usagères des ressources naturelles, ils y participent. Voilà un peu la participation de la, disons, de la société civile au niveau de l'autorité du bassin du Niger.
Et quand on parle du niveau national ou bien local, oui, est-ce qu'on voit de participation de société civile ou de minorités ou je ne sais pas quoi?
Au fait, hein, le bassin du Niger, c'est des portions de chaque pays qui participent à l'entité bassin du Niger. Et cette portion dispose de ses usagers et usagères des ressources. Donc, ils y participent forcément à toute action de développement, à toute négociation, ils sont toujours là.
Et moi, ce sera ma dernière question. Hein. Mais moi, je me concentre beaucoup dans mes recherches en climate litigation, donc action juridique.
Oui.
Est-ce que ça existe aussi au Sahel? Est-ce que ça se voit aussi au Sahel? Des exemples de climate litigation?
Non, bon, il faut noter que l'autorité du bassin du Niger, nous disposons d'un cadre juridique et réglementaire qui est la charte de l'eau. Avec cette charte de l'eau, elle définit les grands principes. À cette charte, nous avons des documents annexes dans plusieurs domaines. Nous avons la première annexe qui parle de la protection de l'environnement. La deuxième charte, la deuxième annexe parle de la notification de tout projet qui demande la ressource. Nous avons une annexe qui parle de la gestion coordonnée des barrages. Et une quatrième annexe qui parle du partage des coûts et bénéfices. Donc, nous en sommes là pour les annexes à la charte de l'eau. Donc, la charte de l'eau est un cadre réglementaire qui nous permet de gérer au mieux la ressource dans la solidarité et la coopération.
Je vois dans le chat qu'on a reçu une question, mais il est un peu dans le même genre que la question que je viens de vous poser. Mais je vais le vous poser quand même. Et si vous pensez que ça vous oblige de vous répéter, il faut juste me dire. Hein. Okay. Donc la question est la suivante. Comment pouvons-nous tenir compte des intérêts des parties prenantes non gouvernementales dans les dialogues transfrontaliers, surtout si certaines régions sont plus touchées par le changement climatique? Voilà la question qu'on a reçue dans le chat.
Ouais, ok. Ouais, c'est comme tu viens de le dire, ça rejoint un peu la participation de ces usagers, de ceux qui utilisent la ressource et les cibles vulnérables. C'est pourquoi, pour les prendre en charge, nous, à l'autorité du bassin du Niger, on a jugé qu'il est très important que ceux-là participent forcément de toutes les actions de développement qui doivent pouvoir être menées dans les régions. Parce que ce sont les premiers bénéficiaires de ces actions et ce sont eux qui peuvent garantir la bonne protection de ces ressources. Donc, il y a lieu forcément de les impliquer dès la conception de tout projet. Ils ont leur mot à dire, ils ont leur contribution à apporter. Parce que c'est eux qui maîtrisent mieux leur terrain avant que les techniciens n'arrivent pour agencer tout ça. C'est ce que je peux dire à cette question. Je ne sais pas si il est satisfait.
Oui, en tout cas, ce n'était pas moi qui a posé cette question.
Ouais.
Mais j'ai demandé à ma collègue de vous donner l'opportunité de parler. Donc, tout le monde peut participer au débat maintenant. Donc, si quelqu'un a une question, il suffit de juste poser la question tout de suite. Vas-y. Donc, tout le monde peut prendre la parole maintenant. Vous avez tout le droit de parler. Qui a le courage de commencer? Oh, ne soyez pas si modeste et timide. Je suis sûr qu'entre les 40 participants, il y a au moins une personne qui a une question. J'en suis sûr. Donc, allez-y. Ah oui, Ado Saleh, à vous la parole.
Voilà, bonjour, bonjour tout le monde. Bonjour, mon nom c'est Moussa Saleh. Donc, je participe à cette réunion depuis Dakar, au Sénégal. Je dirige une école de télécommunications sous-régionale dont fait partie le Niger parmi les pays membres. Nous travaillons beaucoup dans le domaine des TIC, les technologies de l'information et de la communication. Donc aujourd'hui, qui parle d'eau parle de ressources rares. Qui parle de ressources rares, cela veut dire tout simplement qu'il faut une utilisation optimale. Et je sais que le TIC, comme étant un domaine transverse, est utilisé comme étant un des leviers de la gestion optimale des ressources. Donc, dans votre plan stratégique, je vous ai entendu parler vraiment des leviers majeurs. En quoi les TIC peuvent vous aider à atteindre vos objectifs? Et existe-t-il des projets de financement pour permettre à des jeunes talents, par exemple, qui sont issus de nos écoles, pour vous aider soit à travers le big data, soit à travers l'intelligence artificielle et consorts, pour atteindre vos objectifs d'optimisation de ces ressources en eau? Je vous remercie.
Merci. Merci, Monsieur Ado. Et il faut noter qu'en matière de technologie, nous avons intégré un certain nombre de technologies, notamment dans le suivi de ces ressources, où déjà pour faire le suivi, on a les données pratiquement en temps réel, même si ce n'est pas sur toutes les stations de mesure, il y a quand même quelques stations clés qui nous permettent d'avoir des données en temps réel. Et les nouvelles technologies aussi sont prises en compte, notamment dans la prévision des ressources en eau par satellite, qui nous permettent de disposer des prévisions en temps réel sur toute la surface, sur toute l'étendue du bassin du Niger. Et c'est vrai, peut-être que ce n'est pas encore au niveau souhaité en termes d'éthique, mais le pas est franchi, on y va tout doucement. Et tout récemment, on a reçu un étudiant qui doit essayer de faire une prévision à partir des big data, à partir des données de l'intelligence artificielle. Donc, on suit ce projet, on va voir ce que les résultats vont donner. Donc, on y va petit à petit vers cela. Maintenant, le cours de projet à financer, si le projet rentre dans le développement, la planification du développement des ressources en eau du bassin, et que nous avons des financements, je crois que ça serait une bonne opportunité pour aller vers vous afin de définir un certain nombre de choses, un certain nombre de cadres de coopération, ce qui n'est pas le cas actuellement. C'est ce que je peux répondre à cette question. Je pense
Oui,
que à l'ère du TIC, il y a nécessité d'utiliser ces ressources pour la compréhension, la connaissance et la gestion de ces ressources. Merci, M. Ado.
Merci. Il nous reste encore 4 minutes. Est-ce qu'il y a quelqu'un qui a une autre question à poser à M. Zinzou? Quelqu'un à qui on peut donner la parole? Sinon, j'ai reçu une autre question dans le chat, donc je peux le vous poser, M. Zinzou. Donc voilà, existe-t-il un mécanisme permettant aux jeunes de participer à la prise de décision dans la MBA? Donc, aux jeunes, c'est une question qui se concentre sur le rôle des jeunes. Est-ce que vous avez quelque chose à répondre sur cette question, ce thème? Merci.
OK. Et comme je l'ai dit, l'implication de la société civile intègre tous les groupes vulnérables, y compris les jeunes, les vieux, les femmes. Ils sont tous impliqués dans le processus de planification, de décision au niveau de l'autorité du bassin du Niger. Parce que pour planifier une activité, il y a forcément lieu de les rencontrer et discuter avant d'aller à la finalisation de ces projets. Donc, ils sont forcément inclus et tous les projets qu'on met en œuvre, il y a toujours un pan qui adresse ce groupe vulnérable. Merci.
Merci beaucoup. Donc, il n'en reste pas beaucoup de temps. Donc, est-ce qu'il y a une dernière question à poser à M. Zinzou? Une dernière question. Non, je ne pense pas. Donc,
allô? Ok, je m'appelle Augusta, j'appelle du Rwanda de Kigali. Je voudrais demander à M. Zinzou d'où proviennent les financements de l'Observatoire. Comment est-ce qu'ils sont? Est-ce que ce sont le budget qui vient des bailleurs ou bien ça vient de contributions des pays? Comment est-ce que c'est organisé? Je vous remercie.
Merci. Et merci pour cette question. Il faut dire, le financement de façon globale, le financement des projets et programmes, la plus grande partie vient des bailleurs. Mais en plus de cela, il y a la contribution des États pour soutenir le fonctionnement du secrétariat exécutif du bassin du Niger. Et dans cette contribution des États, nous avons le devoir de restituer une partie aux États dans le cadre du suivi des ressources en eau. Donc, il faut dire que c'est un financement mixte, ce n'est pas un financement des bailleurs seulement. Il y a les bailleurs, certes, mais il y a la contribution des États aussi qui participent au financement.
Bon, je vous pose cette question.
Il reste encore 2 secondes. Excusez-nous, mais il faut qu'on finisse cette discussion. Excusez-nous.
Oui, allez-y.
Je voudrais juste demander si vous pensez qu'une fois que la contribution des bailleurs aura cessé et si le financement par les pays va pouvoir continuer et pouvoir entretenir les opérations de l'Observatoire.
Vous avez entièrement raison. Et il faut noter que dans le cadre de la mise en œuvre d'un programme qu'on appelle Programme intégré de développement et d'adaptation au changement climatique, le PIDAC, qui émane du PIC, on est en train de vouloir mettre un mécanisme, un fonds régional d'adaptation au changement climatique pour l'autorité du bassin du Niger, qui devra suppléer les financements extérieurs. Et là, ce fonds est basé sur les différents mécanismes de financement, à savoir pollueur, préleveur, payeur, pollueur, payeur, pour autofinancer les activités du secrétariat exécutif de l'autorité du bassin du Niger. Donc, actuellement, on a fait une étude déjà pour déblayer le terrain. On a mis en place un haut comité ad hoc qui va faire le plaidoyer vis-à-vis des États pour l'adhésion de tous les États pour qu'on y aille à la mise en place de ce mécanisme de financement durable.
Puis-je poser une question, s'il vous plaît?
Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you so much for this. I just like to, I'm sorry to break this conversation, but now the time is up for the breakout session, and now everybody is back into the main room. So I hope you all had a wonderful time asking questions. I know time may not have been enough, but I would just like to give a floor to our chairs to conclude, to say a final remark, and then I will introduce you to how you can continue this conversation. So Otto and Barbara, would you like to just to say some final words?
Yes, sure. So in my breakout group, which was in French, we talked a lot about public participation of young people, of particular communities. That was one theme of our discussion. We also talked about more practical arrangements, like how is the Niger Basin Authority financed? Where does the money come from? Always very important question. So lots of interesting questions that, yeah, we discussed briefly.
Thank you very much, Otto. Barbara?
Yes, thank you very much. We were with Harsh in one group, and we had quite a good number of participants being with us, and the discussion was very active. Harsh was explaining additionally and referring to the particular basins which our participants were from, and asking the questions from India, from Africa, from other continents. What are the biggest challenges, especially, I mean, the biggest challenges anyway, access to basic data, and how to overcome it with the use of the so-called disruptive technologies. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And perhaps I should give the floor to Dave's group. Dave, yeah, and Sonia was in the same group. Would you like to just to conclude? Yeah, Dave, yeah, we hear you. Huh?
Thank you. So in Sonia's group, we had very active and live discussion with many different questions, but we primarily focused on the work of the UNECE and how it is contributing to the climate change processes at the international level. Particularly as it relates to states' NDCs and how we move forward to kind of connect water to climate change.
Thank you very much. And I think finally in Pat's in my group, there's a very kind of an overall group, and we're very encouraged to hear many people are really enjoying the MOOC. And we also talked about, you know, how can we actually, you know, break the barrier of mistrust? How can we actually really bring this water security, you know, challenges in the transboundary basins? And it's a big question, you know. I mean, we really need to really tackle with so many number of aspects. But I very much hope that this MOOC and this online interactive session is really going to help you more understand the topics and also to build this community of practitioners here and to continue the conversation. You know, this peer-to-peer learning really helps so much. And with that note, I would like to ask my colleague Lisa to show all of you how you can actually continue this communication and conversation. And we've created this Miro board. It was beautifully created by Lisa. And so she's gonna just quickly walk us through to see how you can continue this conversation. And also we would love to get your feedback. And normally we would do this in the poll lab during the session, and some of you may have done it. And also we send you the post survey, but this time we're doing it a little differently. So Lisa, please show everyone, show us how it's gonna look. Thank you.
Hello, everyone. I'm very happy to show you this new interactive tool that we designed for everyone. And my colleague will just post now the link in the chat. This is the discussion board that we have designed for the session. And if you follow the link that just appears in the chat, you will see on the right side the background of our event. And you can also sign up for our MOOC and learn what modules are there for your convenience. All the links are there. In the beginning, if you go to the left side of the Miro board, you will see a little introduction video on how to use a Miro board. And if you click on the video, you can just see how to add a sticky note or a comment. That's very easy. And then here you can also watch an introduction video about our MOOC that we were showing in the beginning. Please also click here if you want to sign up for the MOOC. You can see more information about the event, and you can click here to follow the link to the MOOC. And then go into the materials that we have for our session. Here you can learn more about our event chairs. You can click on the bio to see the very detailed biography notes of our distinguished chairs, and of course of our event moderator. You can zoom in or click, and you can also do that from the right side if you click on this image. You can also learn what speakers we had during the event. You can also see what is their biography notes. And here for Monsieur Zinsou, you will have the version in English and French. And you can also follow the links to see what our distinguished speakers are engaging with in their respective organizations. We will also post the event materials, namely the presentations here after the event. So please visit here to check through the slides and follow the links and use them in your previous interactions as well, future interactions, sorry. The most important space is here, and it's called the discussion space. Here you can post your questions regarding the climate change and transboundary basins. And you can see that we have already started a very short discussion here. So please add your sticky notes, and you can comment and add your interventions and suggestions here. We know that the time during the event is usually short, so here's how you can use some more time in your maybe spare time to pose the questions here. And then on the right side, we wanted to collect your feedback for the session to make sure that in the future sessions, we pay attention to your wishes and your comments, and we design them as interactive as possible. We will also now launch a small vote about how you would like to continue this exchange. So please come to this part of the board. And then I will just ask everyone to come here. And then we will start a little bit like a voting session, and you can click how you would like to continue. So either in the MOOC discussion forum, on the board, on the social media, or having another group and another external website. And I will just start the vote now. So please take your time in your free time after the event. It will be on for around 15 minutes to choose how you want to do that. Thank you. That's it.
Thank you so much, Lisa. So I see many of you are now starting to log into this Miro board. I see so many kind of cursors. So we will keep this Miro board open for some days, so you can actually, put your inputs at any time. But I think, we can also stay online a little bit after the event just to see if anyone has any, questions. But we would really love you to get your put your feedback into that. And also we were wondering, and this is related to this question about how do you want to continue the exchange. we were thought about perhaps, there might be an interest, and I think we heard already from some people that people are interested to continue this peer-to-peer learning and community of practice, even after you finish taking the MOOC or in this session. But we want to know whether and how that you would actually like to continue, so we can actually create the space for that. So we are currently in consideration for that. And we thought, let's ask the participants directly during the session. So now this is the time. So please do post your questions or any comments or any things that you think would be useful. And this is also experiment to use this Miro board the first time in this event. So we will also appreciate your feedback on that as well. So thank you so much for that. With that, I would just like to conclude, and I would also like to ask Lisa to just briefly show you that this is the last 2 slides on the MOOC. So I think many of you already are signed up to the MOOC, but if you have not signed up to the MOOC, please join the MOOC. And Lisa, if you could just show the last 2 slides on the sign up page. Yes. So as many of you are already part of this MOOC, we now have over 2,000 participants to this MOOC, and it's increasing more and more every day. And please sign up from this link. And Tobias, if you can just also type the link in the chat, and so you can sign up directly. And the course will be running for free, and unless you like a certificate. But if you like certificate, you don't have financing to do that, you can actually apply for scholarship to edX directly. All the information is there on the MOOC. And if you go to the next one, I would also like to mention that this series is now the 4th one, and a real success series so far. And we have 2 more coming up next month. We have one session on international water law and infrastructure project. This is really an interesting topic. Sometimes could be a little contentious, but it's a very critical topic. And the session 6 in June will be on international water law and groundwater. So please stay tuned. Please, you're welcome to come back and sign up and spread the words. So with that, I would just like to thank every one of you for participating today and very active discussions. I know that there are so many unanswered questions on the poll. If you want to hear answers to that, please type those into the Miro board, so then we will address them from our end directly. And we very much would like to thank all the speakers for excellent presentations. Harsh and Sonia and Didier, thank you so much for a great input. And I would like to thank 2 great chairs, Otto and Barbara, for preparing today's session, and the Wuhan International Water Law Academy, who has been collaborating on this series. Thank you so much. And the Patricia Wood, Director of the Academy, Dave, thank you so much for helping today in the session, and our GWP team. So with that, on the final note, I would like to invite everyone to turn on a camera and then take a group photo. Now, this group photo we will take, we may be using for promotional purposes. So please bear in mind, if you wish not to show your face on the promotional materials, you feel free to keep your camera closed, but we would love to see you in the camera, and maybe we can wave to each other while our colleague Mario will be taking the photo. So Mario, please tell us when you're done. But great to see you, your family there. Hello. Very nice to see all of you smiling. Thank you so much. Mario, tell us when you're done.
Yeah, we are ready. Thanks.
Excellent. Well, with that note, thank you very much for today's session. And we very much look forward to seeing you in the next session and continue our discussion on the Miro board. We'll be online a little while we're just saying goodbye. So if you have any question about the Miro board, feel free to type in the chat, or open your mic and ask questions directly to Lisa. Thank you so much. See you next time.